What's poppin', people? It's Dante, currently going for my morning walk here, standing along the intersection between order and chaos. And today I wanted to discuss some random street photography tips, some advice, and just some thoughts to just throw out there into the world about street photography. Maybe somebody out there is listening, somebody will get some advice that benefits them from this. Okay, so yeah, I just want to start off by saying that I've been photographing for a decade. I'm currently 28 years old. I started photographing when I was in high school. I mean, frankly, I started shooting when I was like 16, but it wasn't until I was around 17 years old, 18 years old, that I started to really practice street photography. Born and raised here in Philadelphia, and yeah, I've been shooting for a pretty long time at this point. And so, yeah, first and foremost, I think the first thing to discuss is the tool that we use to make the photographs that we're going to be making, right? And this is obvious, right? So the camera choice. And as you can see, I've got the Ricoh GR3X. I also use the Ricoh GR3 primarily, but yeah, I think that the Ricoh GR3 and the Ricoh GR3X are two of the best cameras that are currently on the market right now for street photography, as it has a very compact size that can basically fit in your front right pocket. You know, I go for these morning walks with my weight vest on and just do some training, go for a nice walk for an hour, and I bring it with me everywhere, right? I'll bring it to work, I'll bring it wherever I go, right? I photograph on the bus, I photograph during breaks, I photograph in the early morning, I photograph before I go to bed, you know, I photograph every time of the day. And this is, I think, the optimal camera for street photographers out there, because it eliminates the excuse of not having the camera with you. It eliminates the excuse of you not having time to make photos. Just throw it in your pocket, you know? It's pretty simple. There's a variety of reasons why I'd recommend the Ricoh, but I'm just gonna stick it to the simplest reason possible. And so with the camera, we want to choose one camera, one lens, and this is just a simple heuristic that I live by, I've always lived by, and I highly suggest you run with this, because the more you switch focal length and go back and forth and experiment, it's a bunch of silly business, right? You don't want to do it, because you want to become in tune with your camera, right? You want the camera to become an extension of your body, of your eye, of your mind. And this is why I'm a fan of the Ricoh on a wrist strap, because it quite literally becomes that. And you also forget that it's even there, because yeah, you basically can't even realize, you don't even realize it's there, because it's just so light, it's just so compact. And so yeah, I think it's the closest thing to not having a camera, and that's where we want to be. You kind of just forget it's there. And so yeah, with this idea of making the effort to practice with one camera and one lens, we want to hone in on making pictures. We want to hone in on pressing that damn shutter more. And because of this, I highly suggest that you decide what you want to photograph, how you want to see the world. Are you going to be shooting in black and white, or are you going to be shooting in color? Just choose one and stick to it. And so I find, after all of these years of photographing using RAW files, that JPEG is superior, and I will tell you why. The small JPEG file with black and white baked into the camera, I personally use the small JPEG with high contrast black and white with the contrast to the maximum. It's so aesthetically beautiful and so simple, to the point where you have no going back, right? You can't decide, oh, I want to make it color, oh, I want to change this or change that. What you see is what you get, and there's no processing needed. This will speed up the workflow, and this will allow you to just go out there and to shoot more. I really do believe that. And so yeah, choose if you want to shoot color, black and white. Choose a JPEG simulation that you find to be best suited for your style, and run with it, right? Don't play around with black and white and color. Choose one and go. I personally photographed using color for 7+ years, because when I was shooting, I used RAW, and RAW gives you a simple color file straight out of the camera, and that's just what I shot. You know, I never decided that I want to tweak it and change it to black and white. And so I would suggest choosing color or black and white. Don't experiment, just go. And so now that we have those things out of the way, the technical settings of your camera shouldn't be a concern, right? So do not shoot film photography. I can't stress this enough. And this is a bit of advice for any newcomers, right? So if you're just getting into street photography, just skip the film phase. Like, honestly, it's not even worth it. Just skip that phase. Just go straight into digital photography, right? If you're coming from film photography, you know, maybe a Fujifilm digital camera would best suit you. Maybe you still want to maintain that film look, the fucking color, or not the color, the black and white simulation, right? You can basically make the Fujifilm file look like Tri-X, okay? And you have all your little dials, your aperture ring, you know, the blah blah. So you'll still feel, it's like basically the closest thing to having a film camera in the digital world is a Fujifilm X Pro 3. It's probably the second best. Ricoh is the best. The X Pro 3 is the second best. But you want to make sure that you don't have to worry about all of these technical shutter speeds, aperture, ISO, blah blah. Like, just set it to P mode, set the automatic ISO, set it to shutter priority mode, and just point and shoot, right? Use the autofocus, use the snap focus. Everything should be done automatically in the camera, right? You don't want to have to think about the settings at all, right? It's 2024, our cameras can do that work for us, right? Do not use manual mode. Just shoot in auto, just go out there and shoot. Okay, now another technical thing. I believe that every street photographer should purchase an iPad Pro and bring it with them everywhere. I have a USB-C to SD reader dongle that I use to import my photos as I go. And so every day I suggest to back up your files and back it up to directly into the iOS's Photos app. You do not need Lightroom. You do not need to purchase any of the Adobe softwares. You can simply import your photos into an album using the Photos app that's on the iPad. You can look at them in the thumbnail view, click favorite, drag, drop, make your selections, and viewing your photographs on this iPad Pro, it's the greatest solution to viewing images. I believe that the iPad, the backlit screen, I mean, it's aesthetically so beautiful. And so I suggest everyone get an iPad Pro. I know I'm talking all this technical nonsense, but I really believe that these technical things and bits of information will go a long way for any newcomers or anybody that's really trying to hone in on the process, right? And so the process and the technical side of things, I think we need to just get out of the way. And so let's review. One camera, one lens, choose either color or black and white, shoot JPEG, not RAW. Don't use film cameras. Use automatic settings. Get an iPad Pro. Okay, so that's all the technical settings basically out of the way, all the technical practical things. Now we can go more into the philosophical approach to how I view an everyday street photography practice in my life, right? So I think that we should be shooting every day. I think that we should actually be shooting as much as humanly possible. And I think that this is very much possible now with the implementation of digital compact cameras like the Ricoh. So I treat street photography like a personal diary of my day, right? I go out there and I embrace the spirit of play, my childlike curiosity. I'm not necessarily looking for any scene. I'm not necessarily looking for a character or anything particular to photograph. I'm not following any subject, any project. I photograph very loosely and I embrace the snapshot aesthetic, and I make most of my photographs while moving my physical body through the world. And I find that through movement we can tap into our intuition and make stronger compositions, right? So when you move your body and press the shutter, the photograph that you will receive is going to be a much more spontaneous, raw, candid photograph. And I think this is a much more interesting approach, right? So embracing the snapshot, embracing this sort of visual diary of your day as the way in which we go about this thing, right? So no matter how mundane the place may be where you're walking, right, you should always be able to find something to photograph. And you know, it doesn't matter if you're in a big city or a small town or a farm or a mountain or a beach, wherever, you can still practice street photography. Street photography, really, it's just this ethos. It's an approach, it's a philosophy of life. And yeah, I think that the visual diary of your day approach is a really wise way to go forward. And it will help you remain curious, and I think it's a better way to go about this thing, and it won't burn you out, right? Where if you're on the hunt and you're looking for these strong photos to make, you're gonna get burnt out, right? So you must detach yourself from the outcome, right? Detaching yourself from whether or not you make a good or bad photograph is critical, right? Do not worry about the outcome. Do not worry about the photograph. Do not worry if the photo is going to be strong. 99% of the time you're going to fail. 1% of the time you may find something. I would suggest, or I would say rather, that once per month is a good place to be. If you get one photo per month that resonates with you, congratulations. And that's after shooting day in and day out for a month straight, right? I think that maybe lowering your expectations is the most important thing, where you embrace failure openly and you expect to fail, right? You should go out there and expect nothing in return. And I think that is another good sort of practical mindset to embrace, right? So yeah, just detach yourself from the outcome. It's the autotelic approach. Doing it for the sake of doing it, sort of just making photos for the sake of making photos, finding joy and meaning in the process. This is where we want to be. And so in my city here in Philadelphia, I find a route that works best for me, where Philadelphia, it's a big city, but it's like a small town at the same time, where I can find myself walking the same streets every day in a very regimented routine that increases the chances of me finding something. And I have such large terrain in the city to conquer. So during the week, I typically stick to a route. I stick to a schedule. I stick to a 3-hour period from 3 to 6 where I'm walking in a particular way. I'm walking towards certain streets where I know I can expect activity. And this is increasing the chances of me finding something. So I suggest finding a route, finding the streets near you that will increase the chances of you finding things that are interesting to photograph, right? So that is something very practical. But you should always remain open through your intuition to follow your gut and to move freely, right? Don't necessarily limit yourself to these streets, but move freely. Follow the rhythm and the beat of the street. If people are going that way, follow them this way, right? Just recognize that the discipline and the routine of following a route and sticking with it for at least a month and giving it a try will go a long way. And usually on the weekends, I'll find myself wandering along the outskirts, maybe going to a variety of different neighborhoods and streets that I usually don't go down. Yeah, so yeah, snapshot your way through life. Yeah, just always have the camera with you. Photograph every single day. Detach yourself from the outcome. Treat it like a personal diary. And then I think another thing that we need to think about here is when we're detaching ourselves from the photographs we make and we're treating it as this visual diary of our day, do we really want to post our photographs on Instagram? No, we want to delete our Instagrams as soon as possible. So if you have an Instagram account, simply delete it, right? Just go to the app, click the wrench or whatever, and just hit delete account, and go to bluehost.com, host your first name, last name.com, dantesisifo.com, wordpress.org, install the Astra theme, plug and play, publish your photographs this way. It doesn't have to be so serious. You could literally put up a website with just, if you only have like 5 pictures that you think are strong, put those 5 pictures on the website. At least I can view them. If you have an Instagram account, I can't even access your photos because I do not have an account. And I think we should detach ourselves from these spaces where all of these trends and boring photos are being promoted. So just get off the platforms. Who cares about an audience, right? We're in it for the long run. We're in it for the lifetime pursuit. You know, think 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years in the future, right? We don't want to be on these platforms, right? We want to find ourselves publishing to our own websites. And yeah, so anything else I can add? I think street photography, it's all about spending the time doing the thing. It's all about walking, right? He who walks the most shall win, right? We should march with a discipline, with a strong gait, with vitality at the forefront. You know, think of weightlifting, think of hypertrophy, think of the way in which you lift weights and gain muscle. It's the same aspect as photographing on the streets. The more that you do the thing, the more that you're going to find success in the thing. And so I find that through repetition and daily practice, you know, just making the effort to be out there and to just always be prepared, you know, this is the only true way that we can increase our success rate. And so yeah, you really have to love it. You really have to love life itself. Okay, so here's the thing. You think of a photograph, oh, a photograph is light on surface, a photograph is a fleeting moment, a photograph is a story, there's a subject, there's a theme, there's a dialogue here. You know, photography is this universal language. You know, I find that a photograph is merely a reflection of the photographer's lust for life. A photograph is a reflection of the photographer's courage or heart. You know, the photograph becomes a reflection of my essence, my soul. You know, the photograph is something different. It's not necessarily what you see in the image as reality, but it's what life could be. It's an abstraction there of reality, right? You're taking something from nothing, and you're really not just making pictures. You're making this dialogue with the world and expressing your inner soul, I think. So it doesn't have to be this like serious thing where you're trying to be some like grandiose photographer, but just taking it lightly and recognizing that it's something that empowers the photographer and gives you a voice. And you know, I think that photography as the choice for your medium is, quite honestly, a very strong choice, because with photography you're out there in the real world, in embodied reality, on the front lines of life. You know, for the photographer is going to require two key traits for success, that being courage and curiosity. First and foremost, you need the courage to go out there onto the streets. You need the courage to be close and physical with other people. You know, you need the courage to approach strangers. You need the courage to be open and photographing candidly. You need the courage to explore the world. You must possess curiosity to even get yourself out the door. That curiosity that keeps you wondering what's beyond the horizon, what's around the corner. You know, the curiosity and the open mind without preconceived notions of what you will find is most critical. You know, you must possess that inner child within you and let it unleash when you're on the street. And I think through courage and curiosity, we can find ourselves moving our physical bodies more. You know, the more lust for life you have, the more you love life, you know, the better your photographs will make. And I can't stress that enough. You know, for the more you love life, the more courage and curiosity you possess, the more you will move your physical body. And the more you walk, the more you will see. And the more that you see, the more that you will photograph. And the more that you photograph, the more success you will have. And the more success and the more photographs that you make, the happier you will be. You know, it's a very physical thing. You know, walking is happiness. And when you walk through the streets and you're filled with this joy and vitality, I mean, it's inevitable that you're going to make something. You know, so really hone in on vitality you know, increasing your strength. You know, I'm currently walking with barefoot shoes, 40-pound plate carrier. It's like 5 a.m. I'm disciplined. I'm doing my fitness training. I find that when I'm very lively, strong, you know, the photographs I make become strong. You know, if I'm feeling low in vitality, if I'm feeling weak, if I'm feeling like if I'm not as vital, full of energy, you know, I'm not gonna have that will to press the shutter, right? There is this will to photograph that's a driving force that will get us to the results that we're looking for. You know, as much as photography is a visual game of putting together a puzzle, you know, this visual puzzle, and looking at the foreground, middle ground, background, waiting for the moment, oh, click the shutter, you know, follow your intuition, click, you know, that everything's coming together. It's mostly, in my opinion, a physical pleasure. Photography for me, it's about moving. It's about engaging the physical world on the front lines of life. And I think that, you know, the camera, you know, I view the camera as a sword, you know, where I strike through the heart of chaos, revealing the soul of the street to create visual order and harmony through the spontaneity of everyday life, right? Where the goal of a street photographer is to embrace the unknown, to articulate it and put order to the chaos. And the camera allows us to hone in on our inner curiosities, putting four corners around life itself, and saying yes to life, to affirming life. And that feeling of clicking a shutter is a feeling of saying yes, of life affirmation. You know, when you affirm life through the click of a shutter, I mean, it's just such a joyous feeling. It's like, it's something that gives life deeper meaning. And I think that's where we should be when we practice street photography. We should be fueling ourselves with lust for life through the medium of photography, where we merely treat this camera as a sword to strike through the chaos, putting order to it, right? We treat the camera as a key to unlock the multifaceted complexities of life and all of the different experiences we can have. You know, we use the camera as the passport. It's an excuse for us to go out there and to see the world, for us to go out there and to see what's going on in my town today. You know, what's going on over there? Let me go out and just see what's happening. And you bring your camera along for the ride, and it's just with you, and it's there, and you're always prepared and ready to press the shutter. You're not out there looking for pictures, right? You're not out there on the hunt, right? You should be going slow and simply let life flow towards you, right? You don't need to be out there looking and searching and hunting and wondering. You have to just open your senses and embrace the physical nature of walking and the sounds, the smells, the sights, and sort of feel the potential and possibility of a photograph when you're on a street corner. You know, but I think that we should be moving, you know, to not sit still. You know, for the motivation, it's merely within your 2 legs, your 2 feet, and walking on repeat endlessly. You know, when I wake up in the morning, I simply strap this vest on, I stand right up, I drink my espresso, and I head out the door. You know, and from the moment I wake up in the morning until the moment I go to put my head on the pillow to go to sleep, I spend the entirety of my day outside in the real world. I do not sit down throughout the day. I do not take breaks. I continue walking every single day. I continue standing because I'm full of vitality. And this is how I increase the strength of my photography, right? Through increasing vitality, which I don't think is talked about in the realm of street photography. And I'm really excited about it because I'm really starting to realize the correlation between strength, vitality, and this sort of will to press the shutter, if you will. I like this notion. Yeah, so essentially every day I wind up walking at least 13 to 15 miles, typically around 30,000 steps. And I think for the past 2 years, since wearing these barefoot shoes on my feet, I've actually been strengthening my feet and my legs and my entire physical body you know, where I'm I'm just marching onwards, you know. I almost have too much strength in me sometimes, you know. Check it out, look at my I have holes in my shoes every few months, you know. I'm walking too much, I'll burn through the rubber. But I think that's the name of the game when it comes to this thing. It's about walking more, seeing more, photographing more. You know, that's the problem that I find with limiting mediums like film photography. You're going to be limited to the 36 exposures on a roll of film. You know, you're going to be limited to the price of film, and when you deem it to be worthy for you to press the shutter. But when you use a digital camera, you can shoot more photos, right? And I think that is the fastest way to improvement, is to shoot more photos, frankly. So it only makes sense to adopt the new sort of digital processes. And so, yeah, the adventure of your lifetime is waiting out your door. You just got to step outside, right? Anytime that I'm spending inside, I feel like my soul is just slowly dying. But when I'm moving my physical body outside, you know, I thrive and I exist outside the passage of time. For when I'm photographing and walking and observing and moving through the world, I simply exist in the eternal now, the spontaneous now, if you will. You know, for maybe that's where the street photographer is, simply listening to their gut, following their intuition, photographing, walking, waiting, and listening, doing it again and again. But you're not really thinking when you're on the street. You're simply moving to the beat, and you forget about everything, right? You're not in your head. You're not thinking about leading lines. You're not thinking about compositions. You're simply positioning your body and your camera in relationship to life in front of you through recognizing patterns in nature, the light, human behavior, the gestures, the moments, and you're pressing the shutter and you're saying yes. But that comes through a gut feeling. And yeah, I think for street photographers, maybe we get distracted, right? We maybe want to go out there and photograph with other people, hang out, sort of make it more of this like community thing, which is cool. And I'm not against that. I think though, if you want to really hone in on your street photography, you gotta fly alone like an eagle. You gotta go out there by yourself. You know, you don't want to shoot with other people. You don't want to be distracted by other people. You know, you don't want to be chatting and photographing. You just want to be in the zone. It's this Zen zone. It's this meditative practice where you shut off your mind and you become in tune with your body, right? It's a very meditative thing, I think. It really is. It's very special in that regard. I find street photography. You know, you kind of just turn off the world. You forget you even exist, right? You just exist outside the passage of time. Yes. And yeah, don't limit yourself, right? We should go boundless and limitless, right? So what that means is you can go ahead and study some famous photographers, the books, the masters, blah, blah. Break free from the constraints. Break free from the traditional ways of doing things. Break free from what other people deem to be good or bad, right? Break free from any dogmas or any techniques that other people have adopted for decades, right? We must break the rules. You know, first you learn them, you figure some basics out, but then you got to break them and you got to play your own game. You know, the goal is very simple. The goal of a street photographer is to increase your curiosity by 1% each and every day. You know, can you walk the same mundane lane every single day, but still find something to uplift in a photograph? You know, for me, this is the ultimate challenge. It's embracing the mundane and creating something from it, you know, for there really is beauty in the mundane, you know. And don't shy away from the details. Don't shy away from the textures. Don't shy away from the small things that are overlooked, you know, the downtrodden, the things that are often left behind in life, you know, the wear and tear and the stickers on the walls. You know, look at everything around you as a potential photograph to make. You know, look at the imperfections of life. You know, the street photographer isn't worried about perfection. We're not worried about making perfect, pretty pictures, but we embrace imperfection openly, for I find that aesthetically, this to actually be more beautiful. You know, where I start my day here along the cliffside of the Philadelphia Museum of Art, looking out towards the Boathouse Row, the river. You know, I have this flickering light, my best friend here, the flickering light. And yeah, you probably can't see anything. You probably couldn't see anything in this video as it's so dark. But what I remind myself of when I visit this location, when I look out beyond the horizon out there, you know, I remind myself that this world is so open, and there's just so much to see and so much to do and so much to explore. And this fuels me with abundance, you know, and it inspires me to continue going out there each and every day with my camera. You know, just recognizing how open the world is. Morning, sir. Just recognizing how open the world is. You know, it's like you can live until you're 100 years old and still not see everything in this world. And I think that's just such an incredible, abundant thought. And you know, I could visit this same spot every single morning for the rest of my life and make a photograph of this view, but you can never make the same photograph twice. You know, for the power of photography lies in its medium, light. You know, we wield light. You know, I just turned on my flashlight here from my iPhone. You know, we wield light. You know, and light is ever changing, and so is life. And we should embrace change, and we should photograph this way, you know, through an abundance of photographs. You know, you can never make the same photograph twice. Now, this to me is the power of photography. But you must throw yourself out there into the chaos, onto the precipice. You know, here I am at the cliff, and yeah, when I think about photography, it's more so like a superpower. You know, you can create a new world in a fraction of a second.